So, what first made you fall in love with VFX? Like, was there a specific moment or film that clicked for you?
Yeah, let's see. Graduated high school in '99. There was a great movie, which hopefully most of your listeners have seen, The Abyss, which was this amazing film from the '90s where they're spending a lot of time underwater. Anyway, there's a scene where they're visited by an alien, and the VFX team had to create this. It's like the water tentacle monster or the water tentacle. And it was a similar team that worked on Terminator 2, where they had to do, the liquid metal, T-1000. But when I saw that, it was, of course, amazing and looked completely real and unreal. Um, but then I got to see a breakdown, like a behind the scenes. And man, this was television in the '90s. I don't know what format or what channel this was on, but when I got to see the behind the scenes and I got to see the computers and the artists and what it took to make it, it just, I was entranced. And the idea of creating realistic looking images in the computer from nothing was just all I needed to see. I always loved animation and cartoons and obviously video games, but I would draw little flip books of stick figures and doing things. But when I saw that, it really got serious, and that just kind of lit the fire. And I would look for behind the scenes and breakdowns of other big movies and things like that.
I think that's where a lot of I think a lot of people, when it comes to talking about their inspirations, it usually starts with the behind the scenes. Like yes, it's the film, but it's oftentimes how it was broken down and how the magic was achieved, right? How would they say how the sausage was made? That's
Yeah,
usually
yeah.
what captures people's imagination and captures their inspiration and kind of propels them forward and into that particular field.
Yeah, it was, and for me it was, because I'm very much into storytelling and directing stories and ideas later in my life. But early on, I'm an only child. Mom and dad worked a lot, so I was able to kind of turn inward, and it was super interesting, super nerdy, super. I was able to disappear into this world and figure and just really figure out how it works, because that's what I really love to do in general, is just figure out how things work. And I began searching for, I think we had our we had just gotten our first home computer. It's like a 75 megahertz Packard Bell, with a CD-ROM drive. And I distinctly remember, and I didn't search the internet much. We had like Prodigy, I believe, but I was not on it the way a lot of other people were on it in the beginning. But I found at Office Depot, I believe it was an Office Depot, in the checkout line, they had software, and it was it was those jewel packs, the CD-ROM packs, and it was a, like 3D designer, and it had this like really rudimentary, I don't know if it was a car on the front, but I bought it, and it was super rudimentary, but it was a 3D like visualization program, and that really kicked off the next round for me, which was what I learned in the special program in high school in the last 2 years of high school, which led me to go to Full Sail down in Florida and study computer animation.
So once you started working out the nuts and bolts of everything, what kind of work did you dream of doing versus what you actually do now?
Very interesting question. Um, it's a I pinch myself and I chalk it up to luck and things like that. However, I I actually always dreamed. Actually, that's funny. Okay, I always dreamed of working on Pixar movies and stuff, because those movies were just absolute cutting edge at the time, blowing people's minds. And I was like, oh, I want to work on those characters or animate, you know, scenes, etc., just in general. And I've never worked for Pixar, unfortunately, and I've never done any animation regarding like I've always done realistic stuff. Every now and again, I would get to do some little one-off animated thing, but generally I worked on television shows and feature films, and it was all photorealistic stuff. So I never got to work on the stuff that originally always kind of got me excited. But yeah,
Is
that's that.
it is it that those two worlds are just like there's just a big divide between them?
There is. There is. It's like, you know, the visual effects industry and the post production, well, no, more visual effects industry, there's no union, right? That's been a huge topic for decades. But if you're a quote animator and you work at Disney, you're in a union. So there's this big divide. Like the visual effects industry for television is the Wild West. Still is, always has been. And if you work at Disney or Pixar, etc., you're a part of I mean, it feels like an upper class, so to speak,
Mhm.
um, because you probably have a traditional animation background. You probably have like a bachelor's or a something like that. Um, and so, yeah, it's you don't go from one to the other. You may go from animation to TV, but you don't usually go from visual effects and animation and television over to the animation side.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
It's more
That's
of like you can wear many hats in television, like working on Banshee or working on um, Stranger Things or whatever, but it's just like a different mindset and a different skill set. You know, those shows, the animated shows, still have a very segregated traditional role structure. Like you're a layout artist, or you're a blocking, like an animation blocking artist, or pre visualization, or you're a senior animator and you're polishing the final shots. Then you're in lighting and you're in effects. You know, I do a little bit of all of that stuff. So it'd be hard for me to get a job, I think, on a big animation because I don't have like a focused enough skill set, if that makes sense.
no, it does, it does. Man, wow. I mean, you taught me something on that one. I was not aware at all.
Like, I've never met anyone that worked on a Pixar movie. I've met a lot of people,
Wow.
um, and, like, it's just a small I think it's a small community
Yeah.
of those people.
Huh. Well, who or what would you say has influenced your style the most over the years?
That's a great question as well. Never been asked that one. That's a tough one. I've always loved physical accuracy. I don't know what I would attribute that to. Um, I grew up renting Back to the Future on VHS every single Friday night for probably hang on, there's a big truck driving by. Hang on. Can't even hear myself talk. Okay. I would rent Back to the Future on VHS as a kid every Friday night for probably 2 or 3 years straight. Just completely obsessed with that movie and the like lightning that they added to the DeLorean and the fire on the road and just a lot of the cool effects in that movie. And I found myself always trying to recreate reality as opposed to doing stylized animations. That's what was interesting to me. So,
Yeah.
you know, I apologize. I don't know if I have a great answer to your question.
No, I mean, I would follow it up by just asking what. what would you attribute your um proclivity towards physical accuracy? What would you attribute that to?
It feels like magic. Like like I did a lot of effects work, like creating smoke and fire and water effects. And the first time I got to use a fluid simulation tool, like Phoenix, for example, is one that I know really well. Houdini, stuff like that. I can't quite explain it. I'm just mesmerized. Like when I when I when I think through the mathematics required and the papers that were written by, you know, very, very intelligent um, collegiate communities to figure out how to basically throw some math equations into a computer and very accurately recreate fluid dynamics. I just, the nerd in me just like goes crazy. And, and then when it was like, oh, this stuff can run on a desktop computer, and then I can create all of these incredible effects myself, and just like extreme interest and obsession is what I would answer.
Well, what still mesmerizes you and excites you about VFX today, like, especially with how fast, technology is evolving?
Yeah, that's a very relevant question because the AI of it all. um, like regardless of how complex or how simple the VFX are, if it's a part of a great story, it's gonna be it it just like excites you and lights a fire in your brain. Um, just the storytelling tool of visual effects, which on the one hand, I'll go, oh, this is so interesting, or I'll see a post on LinkedIn about a very like isolated technical achievement. And as I've been independent for the last 3.5 years, I've gone from being really interested about that small one-off technical achievement to that's cool, but how can it help tell a story that can't be told with just a camera and an actor? And
Mhm.
and so I'm very interested in telling a great story, but using visual effects as a tool to show a story in a way that no one's ever seen before. And I think it's like music. It's like there's only 12 notes on a scale, for our traditional music, but like you hear new songs all the time, and it's just incredible that there can be still be new music with such a small selection of tools. Same thing with storytelling. So the it's not if the visual effect is really complex or simple, it's the use of it that gets me excited.
Alright. Well, let's talk about how that excitement actually shows up in the work. From your perspective, when should a director bring a VFX artist into the process?
Yep. As early as possible, if they know there is a location they can't go to, or there's a specific visual that they need and they're not quite sure how to achieve it, I would I would find either directly or through a trusted source of visual effects supervisor immediately, because they'll usually read the script for free and talk shop. At least I will. I think a lot of people will, but you need to talk right away because it's going to affect your locations, where you need to shoot, how you need to shoot it. Maybe the scene doesn't need to be. Maybe you don't need to film anything, which a lot of directors get really mad hearing me say that, but uh, I recently worked on a small feature film that I think is coming out soon. It's called it's the story of Buckminster Fuller, who was this like inventor, and he designed the geodesic dome, and he was really, really intelligent. And the director and the producers wanted the opening to be this very like, we're in space, and then we're in macro photography of the mathematics of patterns in nature, and you know, they went round and round and round on it. Is it footage? Is it all CGI? And they didn't dig deep into it in the beginning, and then in the end, we figured it out with like a combination of stock footage and some visual effects. But you're going to waste time if you don't, if you, unless you know what you're doing, you're going to waste time um, kind of thinking things through without a visual effects supervisor involved. So right away is my answer.
Well, um, what's what's something that directors often assume a VFX artist can fix in post, but really shouldn't rely on?
Hmm. Lighting is really like scene lighting and lighting direction. Like, I've heard less experienced directors and producers be like, "Oh, like you guys can like we've lost the light in the scene. You guys can fix that, right?" It's like, well, really, no. Like traditionally, no. There's some really cool AI tools out there now that can kind of do some interesting things, but lighting is really important. And again, with my extensive career, like you got to make sure you have time with your light because even changing one or two shots in a sequence, you're going to be able to kind of tell that it doesn't fit.
That it doesn't match up?
Yeah, yeah. It'll have a different tone or it'll have a different balance if it was, nighttime, if the sun had gone down, but you're trying to brighten it up. We've had to do that so many times. Just with like television shows have very short schedules for filming and shooting and they run out of time. I mean, I've been on set when they're running out of time and they just keep shooting to get the last hero shot and the sun's down and they pull out a light to try to recreate it and then when we see it in post in the rough cut, we're asking them, what else do you have? Because this shot is going to be really difficult to boost the light on, etc.
In those situations, do, does the I guess I'm not sure if you would be speaking with the director at this time or the producer, but do they kind of throw their hands up and say, "Okay, well, we got what we got," or do they say, "Ah, just keep working on it?"
I mean, you mean in post?
Yeah, in post.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, ultimately we can rotoscope and really dig into it. It just gets expensive. So, um, that's it's really to the producer's taste, um, and the scene. But if it's a hero scene, they'll have us keep digging into it. Like, this wasn't necessarily lighting, but there was a scene, in Ozark where, uh, there was a scene where I think it's in the final season. They're in the Honda Odyssey minivan, and they have this big crash, and Jason Bateman's character is like crawling out of the car and trying to help get his family, pull them from the wreckage. And they shot that in Atlanta, and he was sweating profusely, and his shirt was soaked. And they're like, "Yeah, can you just?" He can't be sweaty. Jason doesn't want his shirt to be sweaty. And, and we're like, okay, so we just kept going and iterating and trying to make the shirt look dry. And it was just a lot of hand painting. and tracking, and very, very, very tough at the time. I bet now I'm sure that there's an AI tool that you could run it through and just say, make shirt dry. And it would, it would probably look pretty good. But it was this crane shot where the crane dropped down from above the car wreckage down below and around behind him and around to the other side. So it was this like 270-degree shot where he's like moving and turning, and the car's in front of him and behind him, and the seatbelt and the arm. And it was very, very challenging, very challenging.
Well, conversely, what do the best directors do that makes your job easier or leads to better results?
Oh man. Some directors show up on the day and they're like, I know what I need. And I've worked with a few directors like this where they have physical storyboards, and actually the AD, the assistant director, usually works with the director to create physical, like they get a big piece of foam core and they take the storyboards that were drawn either by the director or by the storyboard artist, and they'll have all the shots they need on the board and a Sharpie, and we just like knock them out one by one. And there isn't like, I'm at lunch and I hear the director's like, where's VFX? Where's VFX? And then they scramble over and I have to run to the trailer and they're like, all right, I want to shoot this shot and it needs to be, you know, insert some complex request and that wasn't planned on. And then I have to call my producer and explain, and we have to throw it into the budget, etc. But conversely, director will show up and be like, yeah, I need this angle, this angle, this angle, wide this way. And then we're going to go into coverage and there's no VFX work after that. It's like some directors are super sharp that way.
Mhm.
And it's a pleasure to obviously to work on shows like that.
And that collaboration, I mean, you're saying it starts there on the day. Um, and I'm guessing the cinematographer is part of that conversation as well?
Yeah. Yeah, generally. It depends.
Yeah.
Um, but they'll be by, especially if the show like Banshee, actually. The cool thing about Banshee was it was like the same team. And so the DP and the writers are always there, and it was always like a close-knit collaboration. Um, oh, I had such incredible on-set experiences working with that team. It was so cool. But yeah, that was a great example of it. Like there was that big fight with I can't remember their names. I'm terrible.
Are you gonna talk about the butler guy and
The,
the
the
and the
butler
and the
guy
Native American?
and the girl. No,
Oh my
they're
god, I just
fighting
watched that last night.
they're fighting around the car, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So that scene was so cool. We shot it in a few, was it? It was like half a day to shoot that scene. But dude, the stunt coordinating team, the director, and they just had it all laid out. And there wasn't like, oh, this isn't working. We have to change our idea. They were good at just rapid fire. They knew what they wanted. And it's really when the director shows up and has the plan. Um, Makes a big difference, obviously.
Yeah, and speaking of Banshee, Banshee feels so raw and practical. Where were you actually using VFX in ways that fans might not realize?
Yeah, man. Oh, I have a lot of cool stuff on my reel for this show. Let's see. But where they didn't realize, a lot of stuff in TV shows, like when they work with weapons, on the set, knives don't have blades. Sometimes they do rubber knives, but a lot of times knives don't have blades. Um, oh, there was a great scene in maybe the last season where it's a big shootout in a church.
Mhm.
Um, and Anthony's character goes in and it's just like a huge shootout, and his weapon at the time, it was like a 9mm style, so it has the slide on the top. At the time, I wasn't there for the filming of that scene because they didn't expect there to be actually here's an example of the tough part. I think there was a lot of limitations shooting in a church, obviously. So the gun that Anthony was using didn't have any action on it, like the prop gun. So the slide didn't move. There was no shell to eject. And so he was basically just like pulling the trigger on a dummy gun and nothing was happening. So we had to do the best that we could there always had to be a shell come out when he would fire. So we had to animate shells coming out of the gun. We had to do muzzle flashes, obviously. Muzzle flashes are always added in television. The little like puff of smoke and the flash of light, never filmed in camera. And I can tell you why. It happens so fast, it won't show up on camera. So
Mhm.
if you film the gun firing everything you see on TV, none of that actually is real because it it it, it can't pick up on 24 frames per second on a camera. Um, and then in that scene, we had to tear apart the inside of the church. It was all effects, smoke drifting, um, concrete and debris crumbling, shafts of light with dust shafts of light through the windows. That was a big that was a big scene. Um, and then there's always cleanup, prosthetic cleanup and wires for stunts. Um, though that show, they all did a lot of their own stunts. That's another way they were able to make it feel so raw was the camera was usually handheld and less traditional filming compared to like your everyday CBS primetime show where it's a very, very formulaic and that camera operator has filmed like 25 other shows in the last 5 years. Um, but they would do a lot of their own blood and stuff on that show. But we would always have to clean up prosthetics and things. Oh, like in that fight where he ripped out her trachea.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That was the end of that, right? Like obviously he grabs her neck and we had to actually like paint out his fingers so it looked like they were going into her neck. Um, to set up for this big practical effect where they did a close up on a prosthetic and it was a dummy neck and he actually ripped out the a fake, trachea in a close up, if I believe. And then when we cut back to the wide shot, it's the actor again, and we had to add a giant hole in her neck so that the shots would cut together.
So, can I tell you, I've watched that scene probably 1,000 times, right? And to me, I was sitting there watching it, I was like, "Dude, whoever did the special effects, like, these prosthetics, they're amazing, it looks so real." And to
So
hear
good.
yeah, to hear you say that it was a mixture. Oh, that's my kid screaming in the background.
Yeah, it's all good. I got
But,
3.
you said you have 3?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay.
Mhm.
I have 1, and he's 4, and he is definitely something.
Oh, such a great age. Very cool.
Yeah. He is a cool little guy. Um, but yeah, I was looking at it and, I was thinking to myself how wild the practical effects look. And to hear you now describe it and say it was a great marrying of practical special effects and visual effects. I'm like, you guys did that so seamlessly and so powerfully that is one of the most epic moments on the show, and you never get taken out of it at like any point.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. It was such an awesome partnership with that team because the stunt team would send us rough cuts of their proposed stunt work so we could kind of plan ahead and it would help us budget. It was a really great team because, visual effects very always very traditionally as well. we're not a part of production. We're a vendor. So if the VFX supervisor or the VFX producer that works for the vendor is not on top of staying connected with production, um, shooting will seemingly go smoothly, but really it was just quiet because nobody was talking. And then when you get to post, it's a disaster.
Mhm.
And people are trying to figure out why things are so expensive, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, there's a t-shirt that says fix it in pre instead of fix it in post. And I can't speak more for that because you have the plan, you go shoot it, and everybody's gonna be generally happy. And then you can worry about putting the money on the screen. This is something else we would always say, is like put the money spent and budgeted on the screen for the viewers, not spending the money on fixing problems, you know?
Mhm. I can tell you, I've done very, very minimal visual effects in any of my films, but there was one film that I one of my films that was called Axeman at Cutter's Creek 2, and I wanted to have an axe throw, right?
Mhm.
And the only reason why I'm thinking about this is because of that scene in Banshee. But I had this axe throw where it needed to hit someone right square in the face. Like,
Okay.
and it's one shot. You can see the axe man in the background, and he throws it into the foreground and just nails this lady right in the face. And I knew enough then to know to reach out to a visual effects person before I shot anything.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And he said, "Yeah, just send me as many angles of this axe as possible and just have him mimic throwing the axe, and I'll take care of the rest."
Yeah.
You know have that happen, have her react, and, and that's that. And so, imagine me on set. I've never worked with a visual effects artist before, but I'm taking his word for it. I'm like, "Okay, it's gonna look so hokey if he
Oh,
if he doesn't
yeah.
if he doesn't do it right." But when you watch it, if you watch the trailer of the film, when that moment happens in the trailer, everybody loses it because it happens like right before the logo of the film comes up. He just nails her right in the face. And it works seamlessly. So I agree with the message on those t-shirts. Fix it in pre.
Fix it in pre, man. That's I mean, that's a great story, and I would one up it and say having someone there on set with you, obviously, if possible. Of course, you have to pay them, but I think in that moment, you got it. You knew what needed to happen, but definitely more complex stuff. Not only have the pre-call with the VFX person, but if they could be there with you, even better.
Mhm. How did you blend the effects into that handheld style of Banshee without, running into a whole slew of problems?
Well, something I always tell directors and production teams, and it became less of a problem as time went on, but sometimes I would get on a show and the director would be like, "Oh, okay, wait, but so for this visual effects shot, I have to like lock off the camera, right?" And I would say, kind of early on, because I also did a lot of camera tracking, like digital camera tracking, I always knew that I could recreate a handheld or a complex camera move in CGI. So I would always tell my clients there are really no camera restrictions movement wise for this scene or for any of your scenes because when you have an action scene and then you go to a lock off for a visual effect shot, which still doesn't really happen much anymore, but I wouldn't restrict them because that's when stuff stands out as well, or you lose momentum in action. So they would do so much handheld camera work on that show. And we just had to learn how to track the camera motion faithfully. Um, then whatever work you put in, you're already 50% of the way there because it's going to naturally blend in better with the shot because it matches, all the handheld motion.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm gonna tell you that I know we keep going back to the same scene, and probably now that's gonna be the most watched scene ever on Banshee.
Mm.
But when I watched that scene of that big fight, you guys are going through a window into the car with them. Heads are going through windshields, and we're following them out and rolling off the hood and onto the ground. Like, there's just so much movement, and it all looks seamless.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Oh, yeah. Here it is. It's Banshee season 3, episode 3 clip. Nola. Oh, that's right. Nola.
Nola, yeah, that's her
Nola
name.
picks a fight. Um, and you know what? Also, like when production, oh, he finds an ear. That's right. Oh, and the hatchet. That's why
And
you.
that's why I brought up the axe, because that hatchet comes flying out from the bushes out of nowhere and just nails him right in the chest.
I did that hatchet shot, like personally. I did a lot of the work on this show too. I didn't just supervise it, but this was the show where I was kind of becoming. I was a senior artist, but I was becoming a supervisor, where I would have I would manage the team as well. Like, hey, we need this tracking, and I was bidding the jobs and all that stuff. But I remember that hatchet throw. So cool. Man, you got me too. I'm gonna go back and watch the show, but not with my wife because she can't handle all the blood.
I'm telling you, I'm watching it now. I don't know how many times I go back every maybe once a year and I rewatch the entire series.
Oh my gosh. Then also, here's this other scene where Anthony fights the, like, English guy in
Yes, and then he
on
runs
the
over his head, right?
on the highway. No, he's on
Yeah.
the high well, yeah, and the truck slices his head off or
Yeah,
something.
the truck runs right over his head, cuts it right off,
So
yeah.
all those trucks were CGI. Um,
No.
yeah. Yeah, they weren't gonna, have the trucks drive by the actors that close.
I thought I for some reason, I thought, "Oh, maybe it's like a super long lens or something like that."
Or like a split screen or something, but no, I'm looking at it. Some of this stuff's on my reel. But, yeah, he holds the guy up and the trailer slices his head off, which is I remember after that, there's that shot of the blood, like, squirts up. I remember making those shots and oh, man. And then this cool Dutch angle when he's lying on the ground at the end, like, this show was so guerrilla, like, filming, like, we would just drive out to the middle of nowhere in Georgia, and they would have, like, minimal camp set up, and it was challenging, and I remember Anthony had a lot of he was very emotional filming the show, which I guess you have to be, but I'm not saying the conditions were bad, I'm just saying the conditions were raw as well, and I guess it probably just helped make the show what it was.
Yeah.
Like these guys didn't put on robes and walk into an air-conditioned trailer and, like, eat grapes and get a massage between takes, like, they were standing there in the heat with the rest of the crew, and, I mean, that's the only way you can get a show done like this, is having the actors on board to be ready to knock it out just like everybody else. It was an awesome, awesome experience.
Yeah. It sounds like it. Was there a particularly difficult shot or sequence that people might not, or they might completely overlook?
Oh, that they would overlook?
Yeah, like
Well,
something that was so difficult to achieve.
man, well, one comes to mind that I'm not sure how it was received by viewers, but, it was so hard. I think it's the same season where they're in that church. They're in New York, at this church, but Job gets hit by a car,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. When he
and
runs out of the church and right
yeah,
into the street and turns around and just bam.
exactly, and, I was trying to use a tool we had at the time to do, like, human body ragdoll simulations,
Mhm.
and it worked sometimes, and sometimes it didn't, and I couldn't get it to work for the scene, so I ended up like, that's a CGI Job that gets hit by the car, and he has to like fly up in the air and like land on the ground or something.
Mhm.
And dude, I iterated on that shot for weeks. Like, my supervisors were like, still looks fake, still looks fake. I don't like the way his head falls. He's flipping weird. He has no weight. He looks too heavy. He looks, all of those notes. And that's when I wish I was a Disney animator. I knew enough to get put on shots that would just take me longer, but we all knew that I'd get it done. However, that shot was really challenging. Um,
Can I tell you what I thought about the shot?
yeah, tell me.
And I don't know if I'm the general public or if, this is just how my mind works, but, the when he's hit, most of the time in movies, what they'll try to do, is they'll say, "Oh, he was hit by a car. He flew over the hood and I'm sorry, over the roof of the car, and boom, he hits the back of the car and hits the ground," right? And for me, when I think of just the sheer physics behind getting hit by a car, you're gonna hit a lot of things before you hit the roof of the car.
Yeah.
And in your shot, you had him get hit. He smashes into the windshield, goes over the hood of the car, and hits the ground. And do you know what my next thought was right when he hit the ground?
What?
And it happens every time I watch it. Oh crap, they're gonna run over his head.
Oh.
Like that's where my mind went. So not for a second did I think, oh, it doesn't look real, or as you said, what is he looks weightless, or his head went this. All I think is, Jesus Christ, man. This guy is for sure dead. And if he's not dead, he's about to get his head run over. And then he's gonna be dead. And when it didn't happen, I was like, okay, thank God. Right.
Yeah.
Um, but that's what I got out of it.
Well, that's great to hear. I think, in context, you've watched the viewers watching the show and they're building up all that drama and anticipation. And then it's something that we as artists, where we stare at 73 frames of a shot for weeks and weeks and weeks with no sound, mind you.
Yeah.
And then when it plays in the final cut, where all the editors and it's going to play much better that's why we scrutinize things so much, because then when it comes out at the end, it hopefully works really well. Sounds like that worked well. So that's great. That's great to hear.
Yeah, it definitely did. Now, that's such a different challenge compared to something on a massive scale like Thunderbolts, right?
It is. It is. However, the basics are the same. The
Mhm,
basics are the same. Yeah, Thunderbolts. Before we get too deep into Thunderbolts, I worked on that show. I was not a part of any of the big visual effects,
mhm.
but I was a part of a lot of a small handful of shots that needed cleanup, and a couple of creative shots that I got to participate in personally, which was cool.
Can
Um,
can you think of some of the sequences that changed significantly I mean, because now if you were in cleanup, were you also part of the initial talks?
I was not a part of the initial talks on that show.
Okay.
Um, the one big difference for a movie like that and then a show like Banshee is like there's like 9 people making Banshee.
Mhm.
Any of those 9 people will kind of know everything about it, who's making it, what the final delivery is going to be. But on a movie like, Thunderbolts or Tron, for example, I worked on that too. Like there'll be like 25 different vendors working on a show like that. And a lot of times their time on the show won't overlap either, because there's like 4,000 visual effect shots. And so scenes get cut at different times, and there'll be a brand new scene that the director hasn't even put eyes on yet, and he or she will get a rough cut of it. And all of a sudden, oh no, 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 no. No, we're supposed to have green lasers in this scene, not red lasers. And so the producer will have to figure out who's going to do this work. and they'll call, a small boutique vendor and say, "Hey, I got 25 shots I need you guys to knock out for us. We have 4 weeks." And, that happens all the time.
How do you keep everybody on the same page when that's going on?
Unfortunately, lots of spreadsheets. It it's
The
hard. It depends, and I've not been a producer on the client side to manage a thing like that, but I have managed large projects. You have to have good coordinators that will keep track of who's doing what, and, that's why those shows also just take longer to make, because you don't turn around work and communications in days. You turn it around in weeks and months, and it just simply takes longer. So you're able to stay organized and things like that. I've seen some colleagues put out some interesting sounding tools that is like an all-in-one production tracking and bidding and budgeting and execution tool.
Mhm.
And I haven't used them, but I like the idea of it. I've dabbled in writing some meeting summarization tools, and I was gonna have it post to a private server for my artist team, so that and it would pull out whose notes are for who based on what shot they're working on. But honestly, it's still very much just manual tracking of, in maybe a smart spreadsheet, or the big studios use ShotGrid, or Flow, which is just like an online data tracking and distribution tool.
Mhm.
But it's just a lot of work. It's just a lot of work.
I mean, I would imagine, the amount of logistical analysis to do that is probably, um, a bigger hurdle to clear than the work itself.
Yes, that's a good summation. It's a good summation, and fortunately, they're intertwined. So then the people doing the work sometimes will, like, do the wrong work, and then they'll have to, like, do stuff over, or they worked on stuff they weren't supposed to. It's not their fault. Like, we would get notes, for shots that we weren't even working on. We'd get a spreadsheet with thumbnails and shot numbers, and, 25 of the shots are ours, and then 6 of the shots at the bottom are not ours, but they were sent to us. And, we had to have smart, aware people on our side to not try and push those out to the team when they're not even we don't even know what they are.
Yeah, that sounds challenging.
Yeah.
So when you speak about cleanup, what kind of work did you do on it specifically?
Yeah, let's see, one scene that I got to do creative development on was it's all these POV shots of these guys, of these, like, military personnel people walking through these tunnels in this building with, night vision goggles,
Mhm,
and I got to develop the look of the HUD for the scan line treatment, the noise treatment, stuff like that. They gave us reference, and they said, "We want it to look like this." So I set up a couple of those shots, and then that was the scene where I believe it was filmed red. So it was filmed with real, um, laser sights, and they tried to add atmosphere to the scene so that the laser sights would pick up, but it never looks like you want it to. So add we had to beef up the laser itself, to make it look more consistent.
mhm.
We had to add additional atmosphere, so, like, boosting up the smoke in the room to make it feel just more impactful. And, oh, man, I think we had to change it to red. I think they filmed it green, and we had to shift all of those shots to have red lasers instead of green lasers. Um, and then there were there's like a scene where they're riding in a car, and in the background, there's like telephone poles and buildings on the horizon. We had to paint, remove all that stuff. Um,
Oh, to make it look like they were in the middle of nowhere.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, there was a scene where the characters were like climbing up what seemed like an elevator shaft, and there was wires all over the place helping the actors climb. Um, stunt wires that like draped across the whole set to like a ratchet or a safety connection. And
Mhm.
so we had to paint out all of the wire. There was a lot of that on Tron as well. So that's something that people don't really, there's the whole green screen thing that's online all the time. It's like, oh, if the movie was only green screen without the visual effects, but like if you saw movies without the wire paint outs, it would look like there was just like extension cords everywhere. Um,
Yeah.
because yeah, safety is super duper important.
I was watching, the other night, I went back to watch Cliffhanger, right?
Oh man.
And I'm watching Cliffhanger and, I'm watching it in 4K and, there's this scene, I wanna say it's pretty much at the beginning of the film, and Stallone is climbing up the rock to help, the 2 stranded, uh, climbers on top of the rock or whatever,
Yep.
and I'm looking at it, I'm going, "What is that flickering thing that's moving around?" And what I realize is now that it's in 4K, you can clearly see the wire.
Oh,
Uh, they did the best they could at the time of painting it out,
yeah.
but when you scan that negative now in 4K, you can clearly
Oh, yeah.
clearly see that there's a wire there. How has the process changed from then to now to where when you watch Thunderbolts, you don't see anything like that at all?
Yeah, man. When was Cliffhanger made?
Cliffhanger had to be like, what, 91, 92,
93.
93. I was
That means
close.
it was made, they were working on it 91, 92. They were doing post 91, 92. I mean, there were digital effects happening back then, of course. Um, they may have done digital wire paint out in that show. They probably did. You know, the way it's changed likely from back then to now is back then you would, you would paint frame by frame, but the problem was it was completely manual. Like there was no tool to aid your consistency. So if, this wire was over a rocky mountain in the background and that mountain is blurry because the focus is on the foreground, and you're basically grabbing a piece of mountain below that wire and shifting it upward. And then you have to blur the edges and do a bunch of things like that. Or maybe you're a really excellent painter and you're actually painting using your intuition to just paint the mountain back where it should be over the wire. But you would only get a couple of frames out of that work. And then the backgrounds change too much. So then you have to like make a new piece of background. And then all these sections of your paintwork have to blend together and track correctly, which is all, manual tracking as well back then. Now, I mean, in most recent tools, which I know that in simple like Adobe Premiere and Adobe After Effects, there's a lot of automatic painting tools like that where you just animate a mask around a section and you can kind of prompt it away. But I think for a while at the big studios, there definitely have been like automatic paint removal tools that were just proprietary tools built for the team in either um, Nuke, which is the standard compositing package for pretty much everything. at this point. So yeah, it's really just about the automatic side of the tech to make the job easier. Um,
Mhm.
and I've sent work out like this to some vendors overseas, and dude, some of that work comes back, and I couldn't tell you how they did it. It's so good and so fast. People are just getting really, really good at it, and I think that also individual teams are have the resources now to write their own tools to do what they need. You know, it's not like there's nothing out of the box that's going to work for this. So, you know, it's going to be really hard to do. Like people are making their own stuff and making things like that a lot easier.
Yeah, because I think a lot about, you know, you and I are from the same era of inspiration from cinema, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's a lot of things you can say negatively about where films have been heading for the past 10 years, right? Storytelling wise. However, the one thing that is incredible is how you look at films now and the visual effects have improved by leaps and bounds to the fact where it's rare when an effect will take you out of a film that you're watching.
Yeah.
Like, it's super rare.
Mm-hmm.
The technological advancements, I think the advancement in craft and skill has improved tremendously. Um, it's just it's wild. I mean, and two, I mean, when I think about that, and I think about what you were saying very early into the interview about how VFX, that industry is still the Wild West, um, and that there isn't, you know, at this time a union for it. I would hope that that's kind of where, you know, the industry is headed for you guys, is that there is a union, because I can't imagine how films are getting done today without you guys, because with it becoming so democratized and people believing they can shoot infinitum, just shoot everything, there isn't that same attention to detail for, you know, post and everything else, and you guys are working on a lot of stuff. I would think, with that skill and the amount of work that is out there for you guys, that the Wild West would begin to get a little bit more tame for you.
Yeah, I'm an optimist, and so I would definitely love for that to be the case. Unfortunately, though, maybe because I'm so close to the close to the community, unfortunately, I don't think it's ever going to happen. And I say that now too because you know, AI has entered the picture, and unless this honeymoon phase of AI and filmmaking and visual effects ends at some point soon, um, I don't see enough visual effects professionals being able to get together and do that traditional, like, we're not working now until we have a union. Like, the studios have been able to keep visual effects at arm's length long enough. I think that they're just too spread out, too hungry, um, too I'm being really pessimistic now, um, because this has just been a topic of the last 20 years of my life. Like, they're too hungry, they're generally too underpaid, and the type of organization needed, I think that moment has passed, unfortunately.
Mm.
I don't have a great answer for it or a positive answer for it, but, you know, I haven't thought about that in a little while, but there's so many of us out of work right now that and studios are really excited about, "Oh, we have all these AI tools now." You know, Netflix just bought that, in intr introspect or interpositive from Ben Affleck's company
Mhm.
that basically you just shoot your actors on a gray background, and then you can just put whatever you want behind them. and it just does it automatically. And they're pitching it as, oh, look, we're still shooting the actors. So it's AI. So we're not taking over the actors, which, they fortunately got to strike for that stuff. But now, you know, there's really no one representing the VFX artist. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Well, I'm hopeful that, because I mean, AI is they before AI, they were pitching, what was that? Alter was it, alternate reality, alternative rea what was it called?
AR? Au-
Yeah,
augmented reality,
augmented, yes, yes,
or
augmented
XR,
reality.
actually, the virtual stages stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They
Yep.
were pitching that for the longest, and that was supposed to replace a lot of people, and then they got into the weeds of it, and then they realized, I mean, there's a lot of limitations, and,
Yeah.
with AI, as much as I've tried to play around with it, um, it requires like, you're spending so much in support to make it work and to make it work the way you want it to, that you would have been better off working with a VFX artist to
Yeah.
go ahead and nail it and move on.
Yeah. The percentage of people, and I say people just in a general sense, the percentage of filmmakers that are going to successfully use AI is very small.
Mhm.
And it's the companies that can pour the money into it. Like, I've been learning it a lot because I have to. And I need to be able to speak about it. I need to be able to say I can use it, um, just simply for the broadest possible job opportunity spectrum I can get. And what I've realized is the stuff you can download and use for free is like last year's technology. The stuff that you see on LinkedIn where people are praising, like, I made this AI movie with $5 and a lollipop, you know, they're just pitching the latest paid version, which is not even the one that, Netflix and all the studios are using. So it's still a very protected technology, and it's being like, yeah, you have to, in like Comfy UI is this popular program to use to generate AI stuff, and you can use all different models. And dude, there's no like class on it. Like, you have to research it yourself. You have to join the forums. You have to watch like every YouTube video out there, and it's accessible. But like you said, maybe you should have just gotten with a VFX professional that's been doing it for 25 years, and they'll tell you their opinion on how you could shoot it, and not even have to maybe even use visual effects, or
Mhm.
minimal, use it minimally.
Yeah. I mean, it would seem to be the logical choice because, every day you're hearing about this company spending hundreds of millions of dollars developing this tech, and then this one is spending hundreds of $1,000,000, and I'm thinking to myself, "Yeah, but if you kept the system the way that it is, you would be spending a heck of a lot less, and a heck of a lot less over the long term.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be pulling your hair out either, trying to figure out the correct prompt, positive prompt, as well as the correct negative prompts and everything else to try to keep things consistent over each shot, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, that's a steep, steep learning curve.
Yeah. It's like, well, I mean, I understand in every way how it's all about trying to get that bottom line number as low as possible. But I find that some ways of doing that cost you more than you realize until you have finished it and taken a step back. I think a lot of companies are gonna look at it and say, "Man, we spent hundreds of millions of dollars and we still have to we've replaced working with a VFX artist with 25 years experience to create the effect that we need to getting them to be the person that punches the keys to create the image that we
Yeah,
need. The effect that we need is like you're still paying that person because essentially they're going to be the ones that understand um, the end result, like what you're going for, and how to get this system to behave in a way that is conducive to what your needs are.
I agree. I agree. Unfortunately, those companies are chasing like longer or an short-term investment, you know? If
Hmm.
they can show how they can make this pretty shiny object, then they're gonna get a bunch of people with money to jump on the bandwagon, but it's not for longevity, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, looking back at the traditional way of doing things, when you look at projects like, Banshee, and I wanna kinda go in that direction more so than saying Thunderbolts, right?
Mhm.
Because with Banshee, you're soup to nuts, right? You're
Yeah.
you're 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 handling it all.
Yep.
With projects like those, what still challenges you as a VFX artist?
You know, a show like that is matching it's a photorealistic show, which means you're not creating anything stylized. You're trying to recreate something that would have been filmed in the principal photography. So there's a standard process to being there when it's filming, taking reference, um, so that you can recreate the environment faithfully with your CGI car or your CGI character or the hatchet or the blood, etc. And a lot of times also you can't be there, so there's just the tricks of the trade to kind of cut the corners that you need to match your CG into the scene with the lighting, etc. And that just comes from experience, right?
Mhm. And what would you say separates good VFX from truly great invisible storytelling?
Touching on a little bit of what we discussed before, the fix it and pre, like you can tell when something was planned from beginning to end and is like a complete thought. That's like the biggest way to bet on the visual effects being truly invisible. Um, because when the plan was not prepared for properly, throwing VFX and cleanup on a scene in the end, you know, the artists are never happy with it. The directors probably never end up being happy with it, and you know, it kind of shows in the final product as well.
Mhm. Well, I wanna be respectful of your time. I don't wanna have you here all day. I
Oh
definitely
yeah,
could,
we
but
could talk. You could just keep talking.
I'm telling you, I could talk forever, man, especially about shows I love, right? Um, but, what I wanted to end with was, if you could give one piece of advice to filmmakers who want to use VFX well, what would it be?
It's a bit of what we already discussed. Involve a VFX professional as early as possible, and then also a little bit of less is more kind of a thing. Um, just going back to the storytelling is you don't have to hit it over the head with big dramatic camera moves and CGI camera moves to try and help make the scope bigger. You know, you can keep things grounded in reality and just use VFX to enhance as opposed to taking over. Like if you need to shoot on an alien planet or the moon, you know, go out to the desert with some mountains and then in post you can paint out all of the roads and power lines, etc., and do some color correction and you're there instead of figuring out how to create this alien landscape from scratch in CGI. Um, I think it'll be more successful done well filming a real location than trying to do it completely in CGI.
Mhm. Integrating the practical and the
Yeah.
visual effect. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Well, Dave, thank you so much for the time you've spent with us to share your experience, your insight, and your perspective. I know that I appreciate it, and I know that the many aspiring filmmakers who are listening to this podcast definitely appreciate it. So, thank you very much.
I really appreciate you reaching out, Justin, and I'll talk TV shows with you anytime.
All right, I'm gonna take you up on that.
All right. I look forward to it.
All right, Dave Funston, everyone.